So last week I repaired the switch on this Mr. Coffee automatic drip coffee maker, which is essentially just a percolator. And instead of the water going around and around like the old-fashioned percolators on it and getting bitter and harsh on using the same water over again, this percolates the water through a disposable paper filter, and it was convenient for a few decades. Well, I no sooner made that video than one of my KAFKUBA fans said, why don't you just throw it out? It's 2020. It's all about the Keurig now. Well, I'm not making this up. I go to work the following Monday, and we have Keurigs in our coffee mess at work. And this one supposedly is malfunctioning and broken, and the coffee mess leader was going to chuck it. And I said, well, I'll take that and see what I can do. Well, supposedly, what it does is it runs and keeps running. Now, I haven't seen this myself, so I filled it with 6 cups of water, and I don't have a Keurig coffee K-cup, so I'm just gonna, I plugged it in, I heard the heater element click on, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to press up. Let me get a cup. What I'm going to do is press 1 cup after I close it and see if it indeed malfunctions. So here we go. I'll pick big cup, but not huge cup. Let's see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't need a Keurig cup in there to work. Otherwise, this video is not going to happen. Oh, wait. Maybe if I turned it on first. See, I don't use one of these. This is, this is beyond me. This is too modern. So, I hear the heater element working. The blue lights are flashing. I'm going to hit 1 medium cup. And let's see if it works or malfunctions. Because if it doesn't malfunction, then this video series is over, because it works, which will be no fun. I really hope it fails. I hear the heater. In fact, I smell the heater. I hear what sounds like the water level's not going down. It's taking off. I would expect the water level to go down as it transfers into the heating element reservoir. Hopefully the lighting's okay. There it goes. I hear a pump running. It's coming out, albeit I guess it's coming out at a pretty good speed. So the nozzle's not clogged. I don't know if you can see it, but the water level is dropping. Cup's getting full. Geez, it seems to work. Well, that was lame. Wait a minute. I don't know if the reservoir is filling back up again or is it going to come back on. So the lights are off. Well, that's lame. Seems to work. Let's try it again. This should go faster because the reservoir was empty the first time, and the reservoir refills and reheats. So here comes cup number 2. You can see the water level dropping. So what am I gonna do if this works again? Do I take it apart just for the heck of it? Well, that's lame. It worked well twice. Wondering if I should just take it apart anyway. Now it's telling me to add water. Wonder how it knows the level, because there's not a floating magnet in this one like in some models. There's only the spring actuated valve, check valve. Alright, well, seems to be working. So much for a video. So I wasn't able to find a whole lot of schematics on Keurigs online, probably because it's a tightly guarded secret on how they work, but I found kind of a high-level diagram of sort of what's going on here for the viewers. So this is the water reservoir, and that comes off so you can clean it. So I'll take that off in my attempt to disassemble. So that's the water reservoir. There's a water pump inside of this unit, and what happens? And there's a check valve that keeps the water from going in the reverse direction. Blue on this diagram is the flow of water, and gray is the flow of air. I think this is the check valve. It's spring actuated, so water can go out, but it can't come in. I mean, back this way. Maybe there's another one in there, I don't know. But so water is pumped from the water reservoir on the outside to the water heater, and this air-operated solenoid valve seems to feed back, at least in this particular instance, to the water pump, and I'm not sure why. So there's something's going on with the pneumatic pump here that I'm not real clear on. But the water gets pumped into the water heater, it comes up to temperature, and there's 3 probes, at least in this diagram, for medium, large, and small. And when I heard that this pump, when I heard that this Keurig kept pumping water after the cup was brewed, I kind of thought one point of failure might be these probes, because if the probes aren't sensing the water value right, it could think it's a large, small, or medium cup, and it just keeps pumping. So water pumps into here, it comes up to temperature, the controller tells it it's time to go, and then there's an air pump over here that forces air into the reservoir, which pushes out the water to the K-cup and through the K-cup, I guess. So the air, there's an air pump and a water pump. The air pump, as far as I can tell, is the sole purpose of it is, in this case, or in the simple one, is to force the water out of the reservoir into the K-cup, and then this will fill back up again and heat for the next cycle. When the water comes in here, it's going to displace air, which is why I think there's also this exit path. This valve opens up and releases air back into the external environment. However, I've seen some Keurigs that have a vertical standpipe in here, and this one doesn't. And it also doesn't have a magnetic float, which tells you it needs water. However, it did just tell me to add water, but there is no magnetic float in this reservoir, indicating, which would actuate a reed switch inside the unit. This one doesn't have that, so I don't know if there is, maybe based on the weight of the water, they figured out another way that this will no longer depress, and when the spring actuation is strong enough, it overcomes the weight of the water, and it tells you that we need more water. I don't know what's going on with that, but again, I was able to find this diagram. The bottom line is this unit brewed, so it's definitely pumping water into the heater, and it ejected the water through the K-cup, so the air pump must be working. Now, the fact that it was reportedly making cup after cup after cup continuously, either there was something with the probes being dirty or there was something with the control unit. And if it's either one of those, there's not much I can do. But though the problem that was reported does not sound like an issue with either of the pumps. So what I'm going to do is, I already moved the reservoir. The drip pan comes off. This the K-cup holder comes out, and this actually comes off too on the bottom. And there's a this isn't clogged, but there's a needle in there, and if you have to, you can take a paper clip and there. This comes off, and if you had to, you can make sure that that's clean, and that this here needle right here is clean, and it is, because it brewed. So I'm taking that off, take the reservoir off, take the drip pan off, and what I'm going to proceed to do is just take this apart anyway. There's a lot of videos. There's a lot of videos on disassembling Keurigs. There's 6 or so odd screws here. I'm going to remove those screws. I'm going to just take this apart and show you the internals, just because it's my channel. And again, I was hoping something was wrong with this, and who knows, maybe I'll learn something from this, and maybe I'll find something in there that shows me that there's build-up dirt, something going on that might be why this fails intermittently. So I'm going to take these screws off, and I'll see you in a second. So I removed the screws, and this is a little different than some you'll see online, or at least that I've seen. But it looks like the release tabs are here and here to get the bottom off, which seems a little more convenient than some of the videos I've seen. So I'm going to squeeze these release tabs, and hopefully this will come off. There might be more to it, but let me see if I can pop this bottom off with those release tabs being snapped out. Of course, you have to have a sponge nearby, because the more I play with this, the more water comes out of it. So it's probably emptying all the lines, and maybe even the heater. I don't know. But there's my sponge, so I gotta wipe up too while I'm at it. Well, I found another screw on top of where the reservoir goes. This is all popped off, unscrewed, but something's holding it up, and there's all kinds of molding and pieces, and I'm just gonna keep picking at it and unscrewing screws until the thing comes loose. It's just a matter of, like any one of these troubleshooting and repair videos, it's just a matter of finding a way through the the appliance. Everything's a little different. So let me try that screw next. So I pried all around the molding, and you can see I was able to get into it by carefully just prying some of the tabs and molding how it snaps on, and that will expose the unit. So you can see there's all these mystery tabs that snap onto all these hooks. And I just was careful, and you got to understand your limits, and you got to know when something's stressing and about to break. But that is the casing, and looks like I ripped out the ribbon cable that plugs in to the circuit board. So that's unfortunate, but we'll find out where that goes when I put it back together. But let me see what I ruined, and then we'll try to walk through this thing and see if we can find anything. Well, it looks like I broke one tab. Which, not sure where that went. And I also found this doohickey floating around in the sink, which I think was the top screw I undid, and it looks like it goes on top of this standpipe, because where else would it go? And I think that's the top screw I removed. Probably didn't have to remove it. Looks like it would have just pulled off. Not sure what tab I broke yet, but I'll find it eventually. Oh well, if I only broke one out of 20 tabs, that isn't the end of the world. So I'm trying to see where this ribbon cable... I didn't tear the ribbon cable, because you can see the contacts are all there, and it slides into where would that slide into? User interface. You see this? So that ribbon cable plugs into there, and then you latch it, which might be tough putting it back together, but we'll get there. So that's the user interface. That goes to the buttons on top where you turn the power on and select your cup size. I'll just have to put that back together. The disassembly was somewhat successful. It wasn't pretty, but you know, this thing was going to end up in the garbage anyway, and if I can get it working or learn something from it, then we're good. So let me clean up a little bit, and then we'll do a little walkthrough and see what we can find. Well, here's an exploded view of everything I've taken off so I don't lose any pieces. All dried and cleaned. I bought this special long Phillips screwdriver because one of the videos I saw on taking apart a Keurig required that there be a screw removed deep inside the unit that this one did not have. I'm not even sure what model this is, and I'm not going to look at the serial number and figure it out. There's a lot of pictures of this unit online. Obviously the design's changed. One thing I noted is a lot of the bases on the units you'll see online have a metal base, and the power cord, and there's the strain relief, and the secure, that secures the cord in place and acts as a strain relief. All of the other units had a ground wire attached to the metal base of the unit. This one did not have that, and this entire unit on the outside is plastic. I think the idea here is what is known as a double insulated unit, meaning if the outside is all plastic and there's no way a conductive path can occur between you and ground, they can get away without having a ground wire. So real quick, before I take too much apart, again, here's where the reservoir allows water through this silicone pipe into what looks like a actuated valve maybe. So this might be the air release, so that when the water pumps into, oh, I'm sorry, this is the path for water. This is the check valve. So water comes in, check valve, into this silicone pipe, into, and there's the water pump right there. I believe that's 24 volts. That pumps water into the base of the heating unit, which is buried in there. I'm not sure if I'm going to take that all apart too much to get a look at it. And then here is the air pump. Does it say air pump on it? No, but there again, you probably have 24 volts. This air pump pushes. Here's another one of those valves that will then push air into the heating canister, which then this goes into the heating canister, it looks like, and then this is where the hot water is ejected by the air once the control system tells it to, and that forces the water out of that needle into the K-cup, air pressured into your cup. So, you know, it's a good thing we have convenience, you know, because God forbid we just have a percolator with a heater coil in it that uses hot water to travel in the upward direction and into your coffee pot very simply. Now we have what probably is $20,000 worth of electronics, silicone piping, pumps, and because they make it in bulk, you get them for what, 179 bucks maybe? So this thing is like a spaceship with all these moving parts. So this is why these things fail all the time, and they're not good for like having a coffee mess, because you get 1,000 people a day making a cup of coffee. That's 1,000 K-cups in the bottom of the Indian Ocean, and when this thing fails, it will follow it to the Indian Ocean because it's so complicated. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of parts on this circuit board. It's telling the air pump when to come on. It's telling the water pump when to pump water. It's telling you it's transmitting the level, the on and off from the user interface, so that everything can work in a timely fashion and you get your convenient K-cup. I don't know how much of this I want to tear apart. I want to look it over, see if I find any clogged lines. If there's another way to tear this apart to another level where we can show you the heating unit, I will do that, but let me play with it a little bit more. This is quite a rat's nest. And getting into it was one thing, troubleshooting it and finding out what's wrong is another, but let's poke around a bit. The inside of this is immaculate. All the lines look clean. Everything looks connected and orderly. There's one thing I could take off, and that's this handle, and I can get it to screws if I close it about halfway and get the screwdriver in there. So there's 2 screws, and this handle might lift off so I can get a view down into the heating tank. Let's just go ahead and do that one more thing. So I'm going to remove these 2 screws under the handle, left and right there, and there's the needle that pokes the top of the canister, and the needle on the bottom of the canister is in here, as I showed you earlier, right there. So let me take the handle off. Well, taking the handle off on this unit didn't get me anywhere except make this harder to open and close. So that was a waste of time. I don't know if I have to start getting into removing these spring clips to remove this shield. Looks like it. I don't want to tear into this thing unnecessarily. I mean, I can walk you through every connection that I'm aware of in this thing. I mean, like, for example, those are the heating element connections, and I don't know. Given that this thing worked, the one thing I might want to do is operate it like, you know, like Skeletor, where you can see all. I might fill this with water, put the fill reservoir on and run it like this. The one thing I do have to do is this ribbon cable connection is a lot wider than the ribbon. There's if I can stop it for a second. There's, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. Maybe it does match up. Maybe the ribbon isn't wider than Maybe the ribbon isn't wider than the connector. So I could plug this in, put the control unit, the user interface back together, run this thing so that you can see the inner workings, and that might be interesting to do. Of course, it's going to fill back up with water. I've already cleaned up a bucket of water on the table, and I don't know. But hey, I'll do anything for YouTube. Well, that's good. I didn't destroy that. And there's the screw that I took off from the top. And this was not the screw. This is that vent for when you fill the heater with water. It allows the air in the heater to vent. Again, everything is... We got water pumps and air pumps, and you know, whenever you have air filling a void or water filling a void, there needs to be a vent. So let's operate this thing with water in it. So this should be interesting. I'm not sure I've seen this on YouTube, but let's see. We're gonna plug this in. I plugged in the interface unit. I heard it click, so the brain's turned on. I'm going to turn on the power. So I didn't break that. I don't know if that's the water pump or the air pump. But let's give the tank a chance to fill. I don't see the water level going down. The pump might just be waiting for me to say yes, go. Oh no, water is going down. So that pump is working. I guess you can't see the water, but again, the water's coming through the check valve here. So the tank must be full because it turned off. I haven't selected a cup size yet, but when I do, it might run. I can hear the heater running. So this is, the heater is filling up and heating the water, and waiting for me to select the cup size. I don't know if it fills completely or it guesses and then adds more water, but I have a cup there. Let's pick a cup size. It's not ready for me yet because it's not heated. I guess that has to turn blue first. So the tank's heating. You can hear the steam. None of these capacitors were bulging. Everything looked clean on the circuit board. There was nothing that looked burned out. Everything is pristine on this. There's the ribbon cable I reconnected. You can hear that baby heating up. It's coming up to temperature, I don't know, 192 degrees I saw on some of these units. Oh, no wonder it didn't. I gotta close the lid. Duh. I'm so interested in what's going on inside that I forgot to close the lid. Now I'll pick the cup size. Oh, there goes the air pump. Boy, this would be a bad time for it to malfunction. I'm not prepared for it to overflow. So the air pump is running, and it's forcing air into the heater unit, displacing the water up this pipe and through the K-cup. Blowing out the rest of the water. Venting out of that hole when it refills with water for the next cup. It's telling me to add water. I still don't know what the sensor is on this because there's no magnetic float, so, and I didn't see any sensors on the bottom. But anyway, we have a working unit. You got to see what this looks like running Skeletor style. And let me clean up, and I'm gonna reverse the steps and put this back together. There's no sense salvaging this and ruining it because it might work for a while for the household. So, alright, thanks for watching, KAFKUBA fans, and this was instructive for me. I hope you guys had fun watching. Now let me make the video. Please subscribe.